How you doing, everyone? Turkey Buzzard here. Hope you're having a good day. I suddenly got the urge to build the place where I grew up. I grew up in central New York in a little town called Verona, and we lived on the corner of a 4-lane highway and a small back road. We bought a house across the road from a farm, and we moved in here when I was 11 years old in the 5th grade. This was way back in 1965, so yeah, I'm old. Now, my parents bought this house for the grand sum of $12,000. Of course, that was the selling price, and by the time they finished paying it off, it cost quite a bit more than that. Now, the house was not in the greatest shape, and you can tell by looking at it that it needed quite a bit of work. But it was ours, bought and paid for, so that made it home. Now, growing up in the country here, us kids found creative ways to occupy ourselves. Now, this tree was actually a weeping willow tree, and we used to climb up in there and sit in the branches and shoot BB guns at the hubcaps of passing cars. Of course, if our parents ever found out, we would have been real sorry. Now, this place is still well known today because of the big red barn. It's sort of a landmark in the community. Now, inside the barn, the benches were in really bad shape, and it seemed like everybody would bring all their extra furniture and stuff over and stack it in the barn. My brother had a pet raccoon, which he would keep in a cage in the front of the barn here. Now, in the back, there were a couple stalls which just had junk in them. And on the other side, we had what started out as a chicken coop, but eventually ended up becoming a pig pen. Although these are mole rats, we actually kept pigs in here, and us kids used to have to come out and feed and water the pigs every night. And when we first got this place, the upstairs in the barn was in pretty good shape. At first, us kids used to come up here and swing on a rope in the center of the haymow, but throughout the years, eventually the floor started to rot because of all the pigeon feces and stuff, so it got kind of dangerous to play up here. But we'd come up here searching for different bird eggs, whether they be pigeon eggs or maybe sparrow eggs, and sometimes we'd find some up here. And if there were pigeon eggs, a lot of times we'd get rid of them, but the sparrow eggs we pretty much left alone. But this barn was pretty much a hangout for us kids, especially in our early teen years when we started smoking cigarettes. The last thing we wanted was to get caught smoking because that would mean a whipping. Now, out here on the side there was a cesspool, and on top of the cesspool my mom used to like to grow different vegetables, tomatoes, and such. And this is our fuel oil tank, which was how we had to heat our house. And my mom had a small dog yard which she built out in the backyard for small ankle biter dogs like Chihuahuas and Pekingese, those type of dogs. Now, my dad and uncle were roofers by trade, and it's funny because this is the only roof they could never get to stop leaking. After my dad passed away, I can't tell you how many $50 roof jobs I did for my mom here. So let's go check the inside of the house. Now, we cooked using propane, and when you came up the back porch, you walked into the kitchen. Now, these cupboards are in a little better shape than the ones we had back when I was growing up. Now, my mom had her own spot at the table, and she used to sit and drink coffee and a lot of times play solitaire. and my dad always sat at the head of the table. Now, every Thanksgiving and Christmas we would have turkey, and my mom would save the wishbones, and she had this big clock that looked like a watch, and she'd hang all those wishbones on the cord to that clock. And I can remember she had 50 or 60 of them things on there. Now this was the cellar way, and believe me, the cellar was a spot you did not want to go. It was always full of water. We'd have to go down there, waist deep in water, and start the sump pump, and hopefully drain the basement out. Going down there to work on pipes or the furnace was always a challenge. The bathroom was small with barely enough room to turn around when you took a shower or whatever. Now when we first moved in, there was a two-seater outhouse attached to the back of the house, but we tore it down and built this room, which we called the back room. My mom stored a lot of her things out here, and we also had the washer and dryer out here and our hot water heater, which was always sitting on a pallet. My mom also had a dog door which went out into the backyard for the dogs, and in the early years this area was used as a place for us kids to sleep, and we also had another little bedroom in here, and there was a closet that went just underneath the stairwell. In the later years my mom used this room for her sewing room, and this area out here ended up with nothing in it except newspapers on the floor for the dogs to go to the bathroom on. I don't know why they couldn't go out in the yard. This is the dining room area, and upstairs was where us kids had bedrooms in the later years, and we'd come downstairs and steal packs of cigarettes out of our parents' cartons. My mom had a buffet in the dining room and a big dining room table and chairs, which a lot of us kids would sit at and eat during the holidays. Now my parents' bedroom was not that big, but it didn't need to be. They had their double bed and their bedside stand, and they had a big old dresser with a mirror on it. Now my mom had a desk next to the front door, and we'd go out to the front door to catch the bus in the morning, and the front porch got in sad shape in the later years. My sister had 3 raccoons which climbed up into the ceiling rafters and made their house up there, so it became a mess. So we'd go out to catch the bus in the morning, and there was a maple tree and a large elm tree on the front lawn, and we had neighbors that lived right close by, but they stayed pretty much to themselves. And my mom had flowers and whatever, and instead of this rose bush, she had a huge lilac bush on the front lawn. My mom loved aquariums, and she always had 2 aquariums set up here, and she'd keep her guppies in these 2 aquariums. Now when you walked into the living room, on the left was my dad's chair, and that was solely his chair. He was the one who sat there all the time. And on the stand next to his chair, he always had a bowl full of candies. We had a big console TV, and Archie Bunker was my dad's hero. But he also loved to watch the Jeffersons. Now during the winter, my mom used to move this furniture to the left, and she'd put the Christmas tree in the corner of the room. And this room was too small for our whole family to fit in here on Christmas Day, so some would sit in the living room and the rest would stand out here in the dining room. But my mom and dad always made sure us kids had a good Christmas. As I got a little older, I moved upstairs into this first bedroom, and I stayed here for a few years. And while I was up here, my dad ended up building a toy box in the corner of the room for me to keep my toys in. Now, once I got older and moved into the bigger bedroom, my sister moved into this room, and she had my parents build this little cubby hole here for her to keep a baby pig in, which my dad had bought. And she kept that pig in the house until the smell got too bad and my dad made her move it out to the barn. So growing up in the country, we had quite the menagerie of pets throughout the years. We had skunks and squirrels and you name it, we had it. All kinds of animals. My brother and I ended up setting up a bunch of snake cages up here in the bedroom. And I also had a pet pigeon. And this closet we didn't really use. It went into the attic, and believe me, this attic is in a lot better shape than the one we had. The only real purpose we had for this closet was to use this little ledge over top of the doorway to stash our packs of cigarettes. It was the only place my mom never found our stash. But I grew up in a whole different era. Back then, spanking your kids was not child abuse. You know, I got spanked many a times. And I was never afraid of my parents. What I was afraid of was getting caught doing some of the dumb crap I was doing. But as I said, I was not afraid of my parents, but I most certainly did respect them. Anyway, I miss the old days. Growing up in this house, it wasn't much, but it was ours. So I hope you all enjoyed the little tour of my boyhood home. And if you did enjoy the video, I'd appreciate you hitting that like button. You know I always appreciate it when you do. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. I put out new videos all the time. Be sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss a video. So I want to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you again real soon.